Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another episode of Inside Rodeo, broadcasting live from the Fort Worth Stockyards. And we're changing it up a little bit on Inside Rodeo today. Not only will we have 2 episodes dropping for you this afternoon, but also, instead of focusing on just one event, we are looking broadly at the 2024 NFR. As we are about 2 weeks out from the 2025 NFR, we are looking at 8 moments that defined the 2024 National Finals Rodeo. The moments that told the stories, flipped world title races, flipped NFR average races, made history. All of those things we are going to get into. And we're going to start. The first person we're going to start with is Riley Webb, winning 3 of the first 4 rounds in the tie-down roping. He was number 4 in the world in the regular season, entering the National Finals Rodeo. Had a big deficit to Shad Mayfield, who had set the regular season earnings record. And remember, Riley Webb was the defending world champion, entered number 1 in 2023. So from 2024, he was going to have to play from behind. But he wasn't playing from behind for very long because he completely flipped the script less than halfway through the National Finals Rodeo. On his first 3 runs, he was first, and he was second to start the National Finals Rodeo. So after you tallied up all of that money, after he had won $85,000 plus in the first 2 rounds of the NFR, he sat with about $320,000 to Shad Mayfield's $313,000. So he had taken the lead in round 4. He was 7-5 to win the round. Mayfield was 9-6, didn't get a check. After that, Riley Webb led by about $40,000 for the final 6 rounds, and he never looked back. 79, 7 on 10 to win the average. He would also go on to win back-to-back world titles, doing so with $479,000 plus to break his own single season earnings record of $452,000. Our next moment, we go to the saddle bronc riding. It is Ryder Wright missing his second horse out, but it's also really what happened after Ryder Wright missed that second horse out. However, to take you back to round 2 of the NFR, remember, Zeke Thurston had just won round 1. Zeke Thurston had won the last 2 world championships. So again, gets started 86.5 points, wins round 1. Then in round 2, Zeke Thurston had just ridden for 86.5 points again to get to second in the round. Ryder Wright was the very next Cowboy up, and he missed his horse out. It got reviewed, but he knew it right away. Butch Knowles knew it right away on the broadcast. He just uncharacteristically just bad mark out. And after that round 2, here's how things stood. $304,000 for Damian Brennan, $287,000 for Ryder Wright, $275,000 for Zeke Thurston. It looked as though Zeke Thurston, by winning $63,000 in the first 2 rounds of this National Finals Rodeo, had taken control. However, Ryder Wright bounced back, placed in the next 8 rounds, won 4 of them, and definitively shut the door to win the world title with nearly $500,000. Our next one, 3 and 4, it is tough to separate them. We are talking about the electric barrel racing that occurred, starting with number 3, Haley Kinsel wins the first 3 barrel racing rounds. And you talk about someone who looked like they had taken control of the National Finals Rodeo. She was first in the NFR in earnings with over $111,000. No one else had more than $50,000. She made runs of 13.38, 13.48, and 13.48 to get us started. And also, after the first 3 rounds, Kassie Mowry sat 7th in NFR earnings in just the barrel racing at that point through 3 rounds. However, as we move into number 4, our next moment that defined the NFR, it's Kassie Mowry winning the next 5 rounds in the barrel racing, doing something that had not been done since Jimmy Monroe 40 years prior, winning 5 rounds in a row. 13-4-3, 13-4-3, 13-25, 13-19, 13-45. And what did that do? It set up the most old-fashioned dramatic way you can end a rodeo and NFR define a world title. It was a horse race in round 10. Haley Kinsel versus Kassie Mowry. Fastest time wins the gold buckle. And in that battle, Kassie Mowry was 13:59 to Haley Kinsel's 13:97. That round 10 barrel race could have been a moment in itself because also Kassie runs Jarvis all the way through as she had for the previous 9 rounds. Haley Kinsel decides to get on Ivy Sabins' famous good horse J-Lo instead of Sister and does not win that gold buckle. Kassie Mowry goes on to win $295,526 and win the Ram Top Gun Award. Remember, through 3 rounds, she sat 7th in the barrel racing alone in total earnings in Las Vegas. For our 5th moment, we go to the bull riding in round 6, and it came courtesy of the world champion Josh Frost, who won his first world champion after 3 straight reserve world champions, after winning more money that you can possibly imagine in 3 seasons without the world title. He comes through. He rode 5 of his first 6 at this point, made the first 90-point ride of the NFR, and this is where it really started to become not quite a sure thing, but close to the coronation of Josh Frost, because he led the world standings and the projected world standings by about $70,000 at that point. He continued to take control as he went on to win the NFR average and the world title that year. Number 6, we're going to the bareback riding rounds 6 through 8. Because if you remember, it was really going into that final round. It was anyone's game between Rocker Steiner, Bradlee Miller, and Dean Thompson. But how did we get to that point? So in round 6, Rocker wins with 89 points. And it looked as though Rocker had really taken control, put himself in the driver's seat. $312,000. Keenan Hayes was actually in second at $298,000. Bradlee Miller, $282,000. Dean Thompson, $259,000. However, if you looked at the projected world standings, it got much closer because Bradlee Miller was sitting 5th in the average at that time. Dean Thompson sitting 2nd in the average. So they're all basically equal at that point. But then we go in. Bradlee Miller wins round 7. However, Rocker is 2nd. He keeps pace. Dean Thompson then wins round 8 with 88 points. However, Rocker 2nd, Bradlee 3rd. So once we got to round 8, with 2 rounds remaining in the National Finals Rodeo, these were our world standings with the projected total. So with the average positions baked in going into the final 2 rounds. Listen to how close this truly was. Rocker Steiner, $365,570 in projected earnings at that point. Bradlee Miller, $365,334 at that point with 2 rounds to go. And then Dean Thompson, about $1,500 behind him, $363,763 to sit 3rd. And remember, Dean Thompson does enough. He was sitting 2nd in the average at that point. What ultimately makes the difference is Dean Thompson in those last 2 rounds, he does enough to jump Cole Franks in the average. That is $16,000 more to him. He ends up defeating Rocker Steiner by about $14,000 to win that gold buckle. On to the steer wrestling. It's J.D. Struxness's 3-6 in round 10. And before J.D. Struxness's run, Will Loomis went before him. Will Loomis was the projected world champion entering the night. He was 4-5 and his steer hung just a little bit, couldn't quite get it down. Could have been 4 flat, 4-1, which would have completely changed things. So J.D. Struxness still had to go for the go round. But entering his run, Will Loomis led him by about $60. So I don't know if he knew that, if he knew the scenario. Butch and Joe Beaver were talking about what he might have to do. Would he have to go for the go round? Well, regardless, he is 3-6 and does enough to win his first gold buckle. And he knew it right away, too. He came from number 5 in the world, rose in the standings. He goes up and he high-fives Rowdy Parrott. He get ups and he hoots and hollers. And J.D. Struxness is a quiet Minnesotan. You know, he's not a hooting and hollering guy. And so he gets up and he's going nuts. He knew it right away. He wins that world title. And our last for round 10 dramatics. The team roping the entire way last year was so intense, so topsy-turvy, and going into round 10, we had projected split world champions. Wesley Thorpe, number 1 on the heel side, Coleman Proctor, number 1 on the head side. Coleman Proctor also had an opportunity in the all-around. So Clay Smith and Colby Payne, who lead the average, they miss early on in the round, which that bumps Coleman Proctor and Logan Medlin up to a really good spot. That puts them up 1 in the standings. And so you're Wade and Thorpe. You're going, okay, what do we have to do? How does this change our run? You recalibrate after Clay Smith and Colby Payne. And then right before Wade and Thorpe, Coleman Proctor misses his headshot, which means he not only loses ground in the average, takes himself off that projected world title race, loses the all-around. Now Wade and Thorpe, they're the very next guys up. They're the last out. This was 14th of 15 runs that Proctor misses. And their heads are spinning. They have no idea what it takes for Thorpe to win the world, what it takes for Wade to win the world, what it takes for both of them to win the world. And they said afterwards, they just kind of look at each other. They knew their run had been good enough because they only had 5 qualified times entering round 10. However, 4 of those 5 qualified times were 3.8 or better, and all of them were 4.6 or better. So they said afterward, they knew their run, if they just made their run, would be good enough. And so that's what they did, made the same run they had made really each of the last 2 years, each of the last 19 rounds at the NFR, and it was good enough for 3.8 to win the gold buckle back-to-back for Tyler Wade and Wesley Thorpe, and really changed what we think of both of them as team ropers, because now entering this year's NFR, they are known as one of our elite pairs in team roping. So those are my moments. I narrowed it down to 8. Could have gone 5, could have gone 10. Let me know what I missed. Let me know your thoughts. But on this episode of Inside Rodeo, those were 8 moments that defined the 2024 NFR. And I'm sure, as always, 2025 will produce plenty as well. So thank you for joining us. Stick around. We've got another episode of Inside Rodeo dropping today. We're also doing fantasy picks tomorrow as well, as we continue to roll on in our YouTube content entering the 2025 National Finals Rodeo. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. You know the drill. Spread the word. We appreciate it, and we will see you back here tomorrow for 2 episodes of Fantasy Rodeo Picks on US Cowboy.